than exceeding on a campus. Without art, how you gonna dance when you ace that math test? Who's gonna sing your praises when you get that high mark? Without art, we're prone to draw guns, act to sing war cries, dance around the issues, model only ignorance. You wanna stop violence? Pick up some violins. You see, those who draw good be the last to draw blood, and those who throw pots we're the last to throw shots. So when you cut the arts, baby, you cut the heart strings off the body that freedom rings. Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate it. One of the reasons why I really just wanted to, I'm not going to hold you guys up for a ton of time. I want you to enjoy yourselves and eat the food. And if you feel you want to come and talk to me directly about some of the work, you're more than welcome to. But one of the things that's really important for artists like myself is to be able to figure out if we're not seeing a lot of people like you in the field that you find yourself in, whatever field you find yourself in, it's really up to us to do the work to make that happen. And so one of the things that I realized really early on in my time at Clay was that there wasn't many people of color at all, specifically Puerto Rican artists, not very many black artists working in Clay. One of the reasons why is because if we think a little bit about it, Clay is a medium in which you really need equipment, you really need facilities, you really need materials that are expensive. And so for schools that are barely getting by or don't even have art programs, the furthest thing from their mind is Clay. And when folks aren't exposed to these type of things, then what winds up happening is we wind up not developing those young voices. So one of my roles is, and one of my jobs is using the opportunities that I've been given, that have been given to me by organizations like Dayed, to be able to take it to the streets. So quite literally, in the last few months, I've just set up my potter's wheel out in different areas of Philadelphia and just began to teach people how to throw pottery. And I'm learning a lot from these experiences, but one of the things that's really important to me is to figure out how to not be insecure, but also to stay humble. So, not to feel like I'm the greatest thing in the world, right? Stay humble, but not to sell myself short. And so one of the things that happens is I find myself in all these different places. I find myself with art patrons, and I find myself with community activists, and I find myself with people that have never touched clay before, people in the incarceration system that I teach, children there. And one of the greatest things is experiencing a really egalitarian moment as a teacher where the person doesn't care who you are. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you make. All that matters is that you want to teach them something, and they get really excited about that. Because their whole life, no one's ever said to them something like, hey, you want to try the potter's wheel? See what that does? I don't have any hope or idea that out of these experiences, people are going to miraculously become potters. But I think what's really implied when folks see people like me being artists and doing it, at the college level where I get to teach those things and doing it in a place where I get to exhibit my work, they see themselves reflected in it. And what really happens is people know that they can just pursue the thing that they want to do. So it's not really about necessarily becoming a potter. It's about broadening what we thought we were capable of. And so that really extends to so many things, to music and really any format that you could see yourself growing in bliss and happiness. So one of the main facets of this project was for me to physically be in this space. As you can see, there's so much glass here. And for folks that are coming in and out of Dayed, we have so many visitors coming all the time to see what it is that Dayed is doing here. They have students working in the classrooms here. And so often I'm making a pot or I'm painting or I'm doing something and somebody comes in and we just start a conversation. And for me, it's never been about the amount of people that come and have that conversation, or there's really no parameters for me or a number of like things I'm supposed to do. It's really about just like letting organic experiences happen. And so that's one of the reasons why I do things like go out into the street and teach people how to throw pottery, because if I did that, let's say through an organization, like I had a big tent that said, come throw pottery here, it would seem like charity, but instead, I'm trying to make being an artist part of the everyday architecture and infrastructure of this community. And so I feel so overjoyed with this opportunity, just being here with my parents. You know, we grew up on Reed Street, which is literally the street right behind here. The street that I look out into when I was throwing outside. And thinking about all the work that folks like my parents do every single day in this community today. It's not like it stopped in the 90s. Folks wake up every single morning, do a 12-hour work day, and start it over again the next day with the hopes that their kid will go off and do something special. And often the community and society we found ourselves in makes that really difficult. We get inferior education, and we just don't have the opportunities. And so one of the things that's really great about my journey into ceramics is that I was able to turn a lot of those things that folks would consider defects into effects. And so one of the reasons why I'm in the arts is because when I went to school, I wanted to go for something where I didn't have to write and people didn't have to see how poor my education was. I felt really insecure about that. So I said I want to go to school for something like art. I'll go to school and I'll meet people my age, and everybody happened to be in the ceramic studio because they needed the facilities. And so I found myself in this place where I was being encouraged really for the first time in my life. I was being acknowledged for the things that, you know, that I was doing well, which is really unprecedented in my experience. And so going through all of that and now being an educator, I realized how important it is for our young people that have access to the visual arts, not just as like physical makers. I think a lot of times we get confused when we think like, you know, art for kids or art for culture. It's not all about like just putting things into people's hands. It's about like all the experiences, like being able to own a piece of art, right? Being able to see it on the street, like seeing a mural, just being able to see somebody paint a mural, being able to, you know, go to school and see an artist of color as your teacher. And so it's all these different formats that art takes, and what that really does is, I think one of the greatest assets that art does is it gives us a sense of self-esteem. And one of the reasons I say that is because art often adapts to the thing that we're good at. So oftentimes when we're making art, whether it is that we're writing poetry or we're a potter or a painter, we wind up like finding this thing that really drives us and we can pursue it. And for me, that has been a trend and something that I've witnessed in so many of the students that I've worked with as peers and so many people that I work with as my students. And so that is really important because I think a lot of the issues that we have in communities like the ones that I grew up in, like in Kensington, like these places that have inferior education, is that people wind up settling for a lot of things because they don't feel great about themselves. And so my pursuit, and I think the pursuit of Tayed, is for us to not settle and for us to be able to teach the children of this community, not just the children, the adults, the people of this community, that they can really excel at anything. And the color of your skin, where you grew up in your education, none of those things are really obstacles for you. And we want to create the resources for people to be able to pursue those things. So I feel so grateful for the opportunity to be a professor at Tyler School of Art, where a lot of my students are here. Can we give them a round of applause for And I feel, personally, just to give you an understanding of how important this institution was, as a child, you know, knowing that Tayed was here meant that my culture and my heritage was important because it was being continued and it was being pursued, and we were happy about being Puerto Rican, and so that made me feel good about myself. So as a teenager, I worked with a lot of Hispanic organizations like Aspira, like Tayed, and that really helped me to get through high school. So I'm really grateful for all the work you do, and whether you know it or not, maybe a lot of the folks that you've influenced and lives you've touched don't get to physically come in here to have an exhibition, but your efforts are boundless, and the things that you've done, the efforts that you've made reverberate way past Philadelphia and way past Faribault. So you should feel really great about the work that you've done because you've done something really important in your life. So the last thing I just want to say is I want to thank two things I want to do. I want to thank Rafael. One of the most difficult parts about being a curator, and that's really why he is here, is there's a lot of things that came his way, a lot of things that he wasn't planning for, and you were just like somebody who was continuously having to adjust, and you were listening to my concerns, and you never made me feel guilty about that. And I think you turned out something really beautiful, and at the same time, it gave me a good model for how to interact. And so I'm really grateful for his professionalism, and I also just wanted to thank my parents who came out from Florida to see this exhibition. They were really proud. Out of all the things I've done, I've been in shows and all these things, and this is one of the things my parents were most proud of, is that I came back and got to do this here. So thank them so much for coming out, and thank you guys all for being here.
So I just wanna say that Roberto, as incredible as he is, with his hands with the clay, it's also with his words and his spoken word. And there's going to be a program. So one of the proposals that we submit, that we try to figure out how to support the programs that we do, right? So we submitted a proposal to PNC Arts Alive where we paired 3 shows with 3 activities in a different discipline that connect and deepen the understanding of the work and what's behind the work that is being produced in the gallery. So we've done 2 of those. The third one is this one with Roberto. And on October 26th, it's a Thursday at 7 p.m., we're going to have a series of vignettes that are about the community, using the backdrop of some of the murals of the community as the inspiration for the pieces. They're going to be, spoken dramatic works, and Roberto is going to be part of that evening. So please come. It's Thursday, October 26th at 7 p.m. here. And I'd like to, bring maybe Eli Dilapia, our vice chair, here so that you can hear also from a board representative.